Today is the 10th lesson of the Reflect Academy series, and we're going to be talking about security and self-censorship, which are actually very, very related. Now, I found that people usually have either thought a lot about security with regard to their notes, or not very much at all. I'm actually in the latter category because I was primarily a notebook user and Apple Notes user before this. And a notebook's not very secure. I used to leave it all, the gym, the grocery store, everywhere. So probably a bunch of people were using my notes. And because of that, I wasn't really recording that sensitive things in it, or things that were really that personal, because I knew that there was a pretty high chance that someone else would read it at some point in time. And when I started using Apple Notes, I just didn't really think about it that much. I thought if someone hacks into my account, I don't really store my passwords or anything here, so there's not very much that I'm going to put in there. I have completely changed my stance since then. My notes are now filled with tons of sensitive things that I would be horrified for other people to see. And I believe that's exactly how it should be, because I think the people who aren't as concerned about security should be concerned about self-censorship, which was my problem. But maybe you're just someone that, maybe you work in the military or the medical field and you just need a lot of security in your notes. Whatever your reason is, we're going to cover it today, and the importance, how to find a tool with great security, and what exactly to look out for. So I'm going to be covering why your notes should be single player and how to avoid self-censorship, the fallacy of collaborative note-taking and why you should probably abandon that notion, the importance of end-to-end encryption, and the longevity of your notes. So let's get started. Your notes should always be single player. And this is very, very much related to the fallacy of collaboration, but this is important to avoid self-censorship because your notes are a reflection of your brain, and only you get to have access to your brain. You'd probably never give anyone else access to your brain except maybe a partner, but even then, probably not. You probably shouldn't. It's your own brain. It should be yours. So don't give anyone access to your notes. You should be treating your notes exactly like you would treat your brain. Don't do what I did with my notebook, which is only put things into your notes that you'd be okay with someone else seeing or reading. That's not how it should be. You should be putting everything into your notes, regardless of how sensitive it is. So you never want to wonder who is seeing what you're writing. You never want to be writing something and thinking, who is this note shared with? Or who has access to this document? Or is there someone behind my shoulder that's going to read it? Because even the possibility of this happening is enough for you to start self-censoring. I wasn't planning on losing my physical notebook, but I had before, so I knew that it was a possibility. And so I started self-censoring. This heavily kneecapped my note for years. Your notes are a secure place to store your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, everything. You should feel comfortable storing anything that happens in your head within your notes. So let's talk about the fallacy of collaborative note-taking. This is a question that we often get at Reflect. How do I let my assistant edit my notes? How do I share a note with a family member? The answer is that you can't, because Reflect is a single-player note-taking tool. And this is how it should be. Your notes are not a place to collaborate. That's what workspaces are for. Internally at Reflect, we still use Notion and Google Docs when we work together, because your personal notes are not where you should be collaborating. That's where you should be thinking. And so collaboration has a place, but it's not in your notes. You should use collaboration tools separately from your personal notes. Now, there's a little friction in copying things over from your personal notes to a document. So the example I run into most commonly is I'll start writing an article draft in my notes, but then eventually I need to put it into a Google Doc so that Alex or my agency co-founder can review it. That's a little bit of friction. I have to literally go copy and paste the text over into a Google Doc. But I'd argue that this is a feature, not a bug, because when I'm doing this, I'm consciously making the transition from something existing within my own brain to existing within the world. And I feel that happening really viscerally. And you might start to make the edits at that point. And so you might say, oh, I'm about to share this with my co-founder. This statement might have been a little bit too much out there, and it's starting to cause me anxiety for having her read that, so I'm going to take it out. Or maybe I'm about to share something with Alex, and I'm like, oh gosh, Alex is going to review this article, and this was a really, really bad sentence. So I'm going to then go in and fix it. So those are just a couple examples, but collaboration is needed. It has a place. That place is not your notes. Okay, So let's now talk about end-to-end encryption. This is probably a concept that most people are at least relatively familiar with. I find a lot of people were introduced to encryption through WhatsApp because it was the first messaging app they used that was encrypted. But end-to-end encryption ensures that no one's going to be able to read your notes, even the people who created the note-taking app. So I work at Reflect. I have access to all of the Reflect internal systems. I have no method of being able to look at other people's notes. I couldn't even if I wanted to. It's because of the encryption that we have. That's very, very important. It means that if there's, a leak, a hack, bad internal report, I don't know what the reason, you're not going to need to worry about your notes escaping and someone else finding them. So you can be less fearful, less anxious about all of these things. And you also don't have to worry about deleting information or, pausing or stopping what you're writing. If I was writing that article draft I was talking about earlier, right in the Google Doc that everyone was going to be able to see and look through the history of, I wouldn't have written those controversial statements in the first place. But I should write them. They might be good statements. The point to censor those and edit them out is later during the editing process, not in the thinking process. Everything should come out during the thinking process. Okay, let's touch on the last category here, the longevity of your notes. So this is an issue with note-taking apps because sadly, note-taking apps are at their core startups, and most startups die. So this is the most common question we get at Reflect is, are you guys going to be around for a while? We've got great answers to this, which I'll go over in a second, but there's another problem besides just death that you have to worry about. Evernote users right now are experiencing a price increase every few months. I think the price is also increasing as the product is declining. And so Evernote exists and people still have access to their notes, they're now kind of stuck in a note-taking app they've been using for years that's now terrible. And this is actually the common case in note-taking apps. They raise a lot of fundraising and then they're forced to hyperscale. Well, the only real way to hyperscale a consumer note-taking app is to add in collaboration to it. It's the most naturally, most natural feeling way to share a product with someone. It's like I'm working on a grocery list and then I share it with my fiance so she can add stuff to it. And she's like, oh, what cool app is this that you just shared a recipe list with me? That's a great way to grow an app. But guess what? It doesn't improve the personal note-taking experience. It actually takes away from it. So all of these features that are put in to scale, one, they ruin the actual product experience, or even if they don't ruin it, they don't add to it. And the more things you add in, the more bloated a product becomes. This is one of the reasons why one of the best note-taking apps in existence is Apple Notes. It's so fast, very simple, and very easy to use. It's because Apple is not under any pressure to hyperscale the app. Their only incentive is to make the best possible note-taking app that they can, and so they have. So at Reflect, we wanted to do the same thing. We have raised no venture funding. We raised a small community round, but we're mostly bootstrapped, and we're a small team that's profitable. So we're going to be around for a very, very long time. But whatever note-taking tool you use, just make sure that they have a very good answer to that question. Are you going to be around here in 10, 20, 30 years? Now, ultimately, of course, you can't be certain that an app is going to be around forever. Things, can happen that no one can foresee. So you want to make sure that you can always take your notes with you if the worst case should happen. So make sure that your note-taking app doesn't just allow for exporting, but it allows for exporting in a lot of formats. Make sure that that's going to be something that you can work with. So formats like Markdown, HTML, all of those that are standard and are going to be accepted by most other note-taking apps. Okay, and then make sure that you can also access your notes without a subscription. So use a paid app if you want. Reflect is a paid app. But when people's subscription run out, they can still access all of their notes. We don't just block everything off behind a paywall. They go into read-only mode. And that means you still have access to all the information, you just can't create and make new notes. We think that's a great attitude for longevity. We don't ever want to block someone behind a paywall of accessing the information that they've collected. Now, there's some practical things that you should take into account. So you're going to want to also choose tools that work into your workflows, that are easy to capture information. I've covered all of that in past Academy videos, so I'm not going to here. This one's mostly about security and self-censorship, but that's really something that you should take into account. So just some tips for looking at a company. Don't just look at their product, look at their values, look at how they're funded, look at what their underlying motivations are and who actually control the company. Okay, so these are some things to keep in your mind when you're taking notes. I think, again, a lot of people have at least probably thought about the security aspect, but not very many people have thought about the self-censorship aspect. So look at your own note-taking system. Think about how you might be self-censoring. And I found that once I became familiar with the concept and the risk of self-censoring, it made it a lot easier to catch when I was doing it. And suddenly you feel yourself stopping a train of thought because of some unknown force that might see it. But over time, you make that habit go away, and boy, your notes get a lot more fun once you stop self-censoring.